Hi, good day to each and every one of you. We want to welcome you to our Global Chamber Author Series. And if this is your first time here, lucky you and lucky us, because we are in for a treat. We're in for a treat because we have two special authors that are going to be um, interviewed or moderated by our incredible facilitator, Lanie Denslow. And I'll introduce her to you. And then we also happen to have incredible authors on from the Global Chamber Tribe, um, other ones as well. So what I'll do is go ahead and just share my slide to officially welcome you and tell you a little bit about Global Chamber and our author series. So Global Chamber Author Series is a component of what we offer to our Global Chamber members and aspiring members so that we build a community, we engage, whether you are an author, an aspiring author, or want to tell a story, or you have tips and techniques around writing. So we say, come engage with the authors. And where else can bring a platform of authors from around the globe that you can ask different questions and perspectives and processes. With that said, we continue to expand our offerings. We meet every month, third Wednesday of the month, 11 o'clock. And next month, rather than a panel discussion, we're going to have a workshop. And that workshop is going to be a marketing piece for our Global Chamber authors and other business members. And then potentials, you can invite a guest as well. So Global Chamber Author Series was started well over 3 years ago. Now, our founder is right on the line right here. I'm always excited to introduce her because, one thing about our CEO, Doug Brunke, who's also on and will give us a word as well, is that he's open to anything for Global Chamber that lines up with our vision and mission and that it makes business sense. And I won't give you the story about that process, but Gloria will share that story with you, but it's fascinating. So she started this over 3 years ago, pulled together authors, created workshops, and it has just continued to grow. And this year she said, okay, I'm going to give you the baton, but I'm still here. I'm running the race with you. So we do this collectively, and we have a core team that also works with our author series. So my name is Dr. Dana Austin. I'm the executive director for Global Chamber right here in Atlanta, and the sun is coming out, so they call us Hotlanta. I think today we're going to live up to that. I also am the 90 Days to Manuscript guru. We help our writers to write books in 90 days, and I do that as a part of our academy. And you say, well, okay, what are some other things that has you in this role? Well, I love connecting people, basically. I love connecting people. I love to see people birth their books. And I love for them to be a part of an organization that has support, and Global Chamber does that. So today, I will let you know that we have three incredible people that I mentioned, and I'm going to allow Lanie to do that introduction. But I would be remiss if I didn't give you something about Global Chamber. So who are we? We are the first and only Chamber of Commerce located in hundreds of metros around the globe, 525 and growing. And our mission really is to accelerate border trade, investments in regions, engaging top executives and leaders in a timely fashion to help them grow their business, create success, and change the world. We're world changers right here. And then the vision is a business world where it's easy doing business globally as it is across the street. We have so many testimonies of that would take up a whole day if we just told you how that happened. Now, where are we located headquarter wise? We're right there in Phoenix, Arizona at the best school of global international management, Thunderbird. So we're right there in that headquarters, but where are we otherwise? We have our foot in over 525 metros around the world. And because of the relationship we have with Thunderbird, because they're in 30 locations, we have another 30. So it's expanded extensively. So what you'll have the opportunity to do is to ask questions, and Lanie will give you the flow and the format. But I'd like to have Doug, our CEO, to welcome you as well.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Gloria, for starting us off on this path and getting us to be interested in this topic. It so relates to so many people in the global tribe who are every day in their business or whatever they're doing, if it's a nonprofit or in their family, to have an impact. the way we have an impact is to learn from each other, identify what those opportunities are, and get help when we need it. And so Gloria saw that need with book authoring. Everybody needs help. And certainly I can relate to that very directly in general, in many areas, but certainly in this area as well. So thank you, Gloria, for your vision around pulling us together. Thank you, Dana, for continuing that legacy moving forward. And I also like to thank Lanie Denslow, who actually we were talking about earlier today when we were talking about who are some of the best global chamber advisory board leaders we've ever had. And we were going through some of the characteristics of what great board leaders, board chairs are. And Lanie hit every box, in terms of her organization and passion and professionalism and caring about others and asking questions and moving things forward and basically being an agent for change and positive action. So Lanie, thank you as well. And thank you for your participation today.
All right. Thank you, Doug. And yes, you set the bar, Lanie, and we're trying to climb. All right. So if you want to, whoever wants to do the shot for the picture, this will be a good time to turn your camera on if you'd like to be in this frame. Hold up a book or two of some of the authors that you know in Global Chamber. All right. Okay, somebody's going to have to take the picture. Doug, it may have to be you.
Uh-oh.
Or Cesar or someone. I can't do both.
Jim, is that something you can do?
Yes.
Jim,
I'm screenshotting now. Okay.
we want to see your smile. Awesome. Felix, you've got a new book. You should hold yours up too. Awesome. Welcome.
Nice.
Okay, we're in there. Lanie, it's you.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks for that kind introduction, Doug. It was a great experience to be the chair of the advisory board here in San Francisco, and now I still serve on the advisory board, which is very exciting. But most of all, I'm excited about being with everybody and having the chance to introduce everybody to two really outstanding, fabulous authors. So you can read the details about both Michael Quigley and Necole Turner on LinkedIn, on the website for the Chamber, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about them that isn't so obvious. So it doesn't tell you any place that they've both written more than one book, which in itself is really exciting. They're educators, they're coaches, and most of all, I'd say they share a belief that people can learn and grow and become outstanding leaders. Sometimes we wonder about authors, like, do they spend all their time writing? Do they ever read anything? Well, the answer is both our authors today are avid readers. They both read both in print and they listen. And Necole told me something I had never heard anybody else talk about, that the narrator of a book is so important to her that she follows narrators because she knows that the books they are narrating are going to be ones she's willing to listen to. And Michael has this, what I consider unreachable goal, to read a book a week. Can you imagine that? I have a stack by my bed of things I'd like to read, but reading a book a week, woohoo. And then both of these people took the time to write books, more than one book. So Michael Quigley, in case you haven't read, is based in the UK. He taught, remember, both of them are educators. He taught primary school. He founded a company. Michael, do you want to tell us the name of your company? Because I'll not get it right.
No, you just say however you think. It's fine.
That's really loving leadership, to make you right no matter what you do. That's an example of who he is. His company name is Kataholos, And his books are Guidelines for a Holistic Happy Life and Loving Leadership. And I think we'll focus on loving leadership today. Necole is, among other things, the Deputy Director of the Global Chamber in Atlanta. She's the chair of the Paralegal Studies program at Georgia Piedmont Technical College. And what's super exciting to me is today we're getting a preview of her book titled Color Code, Identifying and Eliminating Self-Limiting Beliefs for More Effective Leadership. That book goes to press next month. So you can't buy it hot off the presses today. You have to wait. Maybe it's a holiday gift. Maybe it's the first thing you read in the new year. We're excited about that. All right. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Necole and Michael some questions about their process, why they wrote their books, more about their books. And at some point, we'll stop and give people in the audience a chance to ask some questions. So if you have questions while they're talking, feel free to put them in the chat. Dana's going to keep an eye on that. And when we take a break for questions, we'll do the old-fashioned raise your visual hand. So alphabetical order, MN, Michael, and then Necole, and we'll go back and forth. So the first question, Michael, is, why did you write the book? Why did you write the book, and who do you think your reader is? And you've got about 2 minutes to tell us. We got a lot of questions today.
Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody understands that love is a place where everybody belongs. And in business, we can run out of time, we can run out of energy, we can run out of money, we can run out of patience. And I'm in a very fortunate position where I train a lot of leaders, business owners, directors, managers, and they listen to me. And I saw a disconnect. And I was like, why is love not informing everybody's leadership? If that's the thing everybody understands, if that's the thing everybody believes in, if that's the thing, no matter where you are in the world, what would that practically look like? Because you can't just tell people I love you and then be horrible to them. And I thought, I need to capture the way I do it, in a practical way. So if you read that book, you could go, oh, great, now I understand how to do it. And that's what that book is. So I always say, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, I'm not here anymore, you can read that and you'll know exactly what a loving leader is. I hope that's under 2 minutes.
Well done. And very touching, but please don't get run over by a bus. We would be very sad without you. And Necole, with your upcoming book, do you want to tell us why you wrote the book? Why now? Who's your target reader?
So I wrote the book because I've had some horrible managers in my career, and most recently coming from a particular company. And you take these personality tests on what type of leadership style that you have. And, everyone's identified by a particular color. So I know what my leadership color is, but I felt that there was a missing link. Okay, now that you know your leadership style and your leadership color, what next? How is that going to make you a more effective leader? And what I found is that our leadership styles mainly come from our beliefs, they come from our family values, they come from our life experiences and our education. So if we can target those particular areas, and how we often suffer from imposter syndrome, or how we often suffer from these self-limiting beliefs and how they can often influence our leadership style, then we can become more effective leaders. So those who are in any leadership position, I do believe at my heart's core that this book would be very beneficial.
Okay, so I'm going to stay with you, Necole, for the next question is, you've written other books, one of them, Reflection of the Butterfly. So this one is your second. Was there anything different about writing a second book in how you approached it, how you thought about it? Michael, I'm going to ask you the same question after Necole has a chance to answer or was it similar? Did it feel different to you?
Well, my first book, Reflections of the Butterfly, Affirmations for Empowerment, was published in 2015. So that was a personal journey. That was my 10 years in the wilderness trying to figure out what my purpose in this life was. So that was written from a very personal space. And I literally wrote it in 4 months. My second book, which Dana held up, was strategic principles for women in leadership. And that was really on my trajectory, just, starting to identify my purpose and move up, and just really talking about the strategies that I used in that whole process. So this particular book, it was really born from a place of frustration. And I love what Michael, had to say about love, because one of my mentors and one of my dear friends perishes on this call, and she always leads with love. And I tell every one of my friends each and every day that my heart loves yours dearly. And I tell my students that as well, because if you can't lead from a place that comes from that, and then no matter what your background or self-limiting beliefs are, if that's not the core of where your leadership is, then I believe that you won't be an effective leader. So the process for writing was definitely different. This came from more of a strategic place, and just sharing some different things that I've learned and that I've seen in some of the managers that I've had along the way.
All right, thanks. And Michael, sort of the same question to you, writing 2 books, different experiences, similar?
Yeah, totally different. My first book was before I had a business. I was working as a personal trainer, and I was going like, there's more to life than just your body, there's your mind, and it all kind of links together. So that was how I wrote that. And my accountant said, you just made your first asset. I was like, what's an asset? So that's how far long ago it was. With this one, it was a lot more like, and anybody knows me knows how much I care about my customers and my friends. And I was like, I've got something to say on this. I've got something to, and it was just so creative. I've got to get it out. And I've written every day for like 10 years, the Artist's Way, that fantastic book, when they talk about the morning pages, just write every day. And I just had to get it out. I really, really did. It was very kind of like personal to me. But interestingly, I knew I had an audience for it, which was quite unusual, because it's like when artists have that second album syndrome and they second guess themselves. I had the opposite experience. I was like, I need to put this out because I know people would enjoy this. So that actually affirmed me that I knew there might even be just 1 or 2 people that would actually enjoy this. Whereas when you write your first book, you haven't got a clue, you doubt yourself, all that kind of stuff. So to me, I'd like to feel I'm a better writer. Sillily, I wanted it to be longer because I wanted to have more to say. I know it's silly, but that's like a standard I set for myself. And I took it a lot more seriously. I dedicated myself, and it's part of my craft now, and I'll be writing books the rest of my life. Whereas the first one was more kind of flash in the pan. Now it's a part of my discipline and my dedicated practice.
So is there a book in the works that we should be? It's pretty exciting to hear an author say there are more books coming, because it means that we get to read more of your books. But is there a book that you're working on that by this time next year we might get to read?
Is that for me?
Sir, say that again.
Is that for me, Lanie? Or do you want to go to Necole?
Oh, that's for you, Michael. Sorry. I'm going to ask the same thing of Necole, but you started this, so you write every day. You're going to write more books. So I want to know, should I stand by the door?
Yes. Yeah. So what I try and do is I identify, kind of like Necole, where there's a gap, and you're like, we need this. This is a thing. We need this, And I found another gap. So I was like, right. It's influenced by my father. My father's Irish, and there's a wonderful phrase called Fáilte Rótha. Fáilte means welcome. The Global Chamber are great for this. They make you feel welcome. And Rótha means I put it out before you. Like in America, they talk about rolling out the red carpet, right? So Fáilte Rótha is like, I will make you feel welcome. But more than that, it's like, I will make you feel like you belong. And I was just like, that is more needed than ever. We talk about loneliness, tribalism, duality, blah, blah, blah. But if you make somebody feel like they're welcome, no matter where you are and what you do, what would that look like in a business context, etc. So to be honest, if I just stopped everything I'm doing for 6 months, I could easily write that. I could probably write in about 3 months. But I run a business, and there's multiple other things that, are more important and have to be priority. So for example, I've committed to writing 2 blogs a month now. And I've done that for the past 3 months, because I know if I put a blog out, people read it and get value straight away. But a book, you're talking about, at least a year publication process and stuff like that. So yes, there are more books coming, but you might have to wait a bit more than a year.
Okay, so we will be asking you that question. Let's see, quarterly maybe would help. But that's terrific, Michael. Exciting to know that there's another book and we have a little insight about what's coming and something to look forward to. And Necole, I saw you smiling, so I'm wondering if, at least in your mind, is there another book to come, or do you know yet?
I will say that you all are getting a great sneak peek at this book that is currently in the final editing stages, and it will be, the first part of 2025. So as of right now, of course, there are always more books to come, but my goal was to get this one done by the end of the year. I accomplished that. So I'm just okay where I am right now. I really am. Of course, there'll be more, but not in the immediate future.
Well,
I'm just gonna say that.
okay, so we're going to just stick with celebrating the fact that we know your new book is coming, and that we can begin our new year with you and the new
Yep.
book. And then we'll ask
Absolutely.
you the question again next year. How's that?
Okay.
Fair enough?
Yeah,
Fair
that
enough.
we can do. That we can
Okay,
do.
so I want to ask you both, and Necole, I'll start out with you. Just a really practical question, because I think one of the things I know that brings people to share with us once a month is, well, I've got an idea for a book, but how do you get it out of your head? And we each have a different way of doing it. So, Necole, dictated to someone the book, wrote it by hand, quill pen on parchment paper, anything like that. How did you get from the idea to getting it to the point now where it's almost ready to go to press? Just in that practical, how do you write?
All of my books have been born out of personal experiences. I just want to say that first, because if you read one of my books, it's not going to be heavily research data driven. That's not my personality. Empirical research, etc. I do talk with other individuals about their experiences, but I do take my own and I research from that backwards. And then I am a very pen to paper type person. I have journals in my office. I have them at home. I have them in my book bag. So I keep journals all around. So if I have an idea, then I jot it down. And then I have several pieces of paper just stuck, and I just kind of just put them all together. And then you take it from that, and I just start typing. And I know that Dana and her transformational writers group, where she talks a lot about just write, just no matter if you have 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, if that's all that you have, write. And so I just think that's very important, that all my books, that they come from a very personal place.
Okay, thanks. And Michael, what's your process, or do you have a defined process? You said you write every day.
I do, yeah. So when I studied writing at university, and they talk about the difference between the speaker and the author and the writer, I've realized there's a massive difference between how fast you think, how quick you type, how quick you can handwrite, how quick you can speak. And for me, when creativity hits or there's something, I need to capture it as quick as possible. Having said that, the actual process of writing it down orders it and slows it down. So I use my phone because it's with me most of the time. And very simple. I have notes, just the app Notes. I have folders. Every day I reflect on things I'm grateful for, things I've enjoyed, things I've improved, and successes. I always put little pictures and stuff like that. But then I also have a section on thoughts, and I got free reign to just write whatever. But then I'll also have a section that says good ideas. So I might get like a good idea that week, maybe one. If we were all honest, we think, we get lots of good ideas because there are ideas. But actually, if you look back on them, maybe one of them out of 7 was really good. And once that is like of value, I go, I might make a folder out of that. So that's where my new book came from. I was just writing and I was seeing this trail. I was like, I know exactly what to write for my next book, you know. So that became then the folder, and then everything goes in the folder. So it could be ideas. I've purposely separated editing and drafting from creative, what you call creative writing. So meaning I will just splurge, like Necole was saying, what they call rough cut, just get it down. Because for me, editing, proofreading is so tedious and so hard and so difficult. If I was to do the two at once, it would just be like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. So I don't care about spelling mistakes. I don't care about any of that. I care about, you know, is the value in what I'm writing. Once I've then got that, I will email it to myself, put it on my laptop, and then look at it on a bigger screen and go, okay, let's have a look at this. And then you start to go into the next stage, you know. But that way I've got that accessibility. And that's how I write my blogs as well. So I'll write them on my phone, copy and paste them to myself in email, look at them, send them to my team that will proofread them and find all the errors I've made. And then we start to kind of like, you know, refine it. So no quill for me, unfortunately.
No quill. From the phone to your computer, I'm guessing, and then work from there. And heck, you said something and I thought, oh, that's the next thing I need to know. Michael, I am indebted to you for the moment. Again, so you casually mentioned somebody reading at some point. So I wanted to hear from both of you, and then we'll see if there's some questions. So at what point do you have somebody read? You sort of casually mentioned it. And are they reading for content to give you feedback on what you read, or are they reading sort of cleaning up the spelling mistakes?
Yeah. So I'm very fortunate in that I can send them to my father. My father's got so much experience in leadership and education, so I'll send them to him. And he will, like you just said, it depends, you know. So if he's spotted a load of errors, he'll send me an email saying, you need to take a second look at this. This is rubbish, you know. Or he might just say, you've just missed the flow of this. Or, you know, if I write the word practice wrong and I put an S instead of a C, like everybody does, you know. Or as an English person, you know, I might miss out on American spellings. You have to watch out for things like that. So generally, I've got to the stage where they should be finding a few small bits. You know, if they're finding a lot, I've not done my due diligence. What I tend to do is write it, leave it, come back to it myself. You know, otherwise I'm making work for them, and it's not fair on them. I wait till I've got it to a point where it's like, right, I think this is great, and they always find mistakes. So, for example, I write a weekly email on a Friday, like an inspirational email, and I send it to them and say, have you spotted anything? They always find something, always, even if it's just one word.
Okay, sorry to interrupt, but who are them? You mentioned your dad, but do you have a team of trusted people?
Guess who this is the second one?
Your wife.
Close. I don't have a wife. It's my mum. So my mum works for me. So she is directress of operations. So it's her job to tell me when I'm doing something wrong, to tell me when I've made a mistake, things like that. So she comes in on that very kind of practical level. Sometimes they both help, sometimes they don't, you know. But it doesn't matter too much who you've got, as long as you've got somebody who's not you, because you're going to think it's great because you've written it. You're not going to see all your mistakes. You know, I personally wouldn't use like an AI or something like that, because I just feel at this stage, I don't have a relationship with that strong enough. I feel very strongly about the creative aspect of that. And I wouldn't feel comfortable at this stage outsourcing to somebody who's not a trusted person, especially something you're writing yourself from scratch.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. You really have to trust that person who's reading for you. And Necole, at what stage do you have somebody read, and maybe who does the reading?
I admire Michael because he has a team, and that's really special. I do have a couple of people. One person is actually my coach. He's my mentor by the name of David Gibson, and I've been a part of his mastermind since COVID. And he is one. He actually wrote the foreword for the book. And we have been bouncing around ideas about self-limiting beliefs. We explored that for a couple of years in our mastermind, and that was kind of like the bridge. And that's probably be the next book. I just got an idea, but I bounce it off him, and then also my partner and everything is Mr. Felix Turner. And so he is one that he's been a leader in his organization for probably over 20 years now. And so when we got to the beyond the color code and we started talking about the personality test and the leadership styles and kind of bouncing it off of his team, then he read through the first couple of chapters and gave some ideas. And he's a great stickler for, okay, word placement and I'm spelling, and hey, you kind of want to reorganize this or rethink this. So those would be the two most trusted people that I would say that is my second set of eyes.
Thanks, Necole. And I think both of you talked about the importance of sharing it with people that you really trust, and people that you can hear the love and the caring that comes through with the corrections, because you really need to be in that place to have, at least that's my experience, something that you've labored on and that really talks about something you care, to hear somebody say, if you could tweak this a little bit, you need to be able to hear the love that goes with that. So thank you. So Dana, I want to pause here before I ask Necole and Michael more questions, and ask you if there are any questions in the chat that we should pick up. We have a couple minutes for questions.
Yes, Lanie, we do have a few questions. One is, this particular question is directed towards Necole. Please share an example of your leadership color code.
Oh, yes. So for those of you who aren't familiar with color code, it is a personality-based test, and a lot of organizations use it. And some of the leadership style colors are, red. And so if you're a leader that leads with red, it's very directive. It's very authoritative, and they're very decisive and very confident. So let's say if you're white, then you're very peaceful, then you are a collaborative leader, and you seek harmony in your work groups. If you're green, then you're very strategic and then you're analytical and you're detailed and you rely heavily on data and logical reasoning. And there are a couple of others. And so the premise behind color code is that if you take these questions and most of these things line up with you, then this is your leadership style. And so in writing the book, I was like, okay, so what's beyond that? So you know your color. Okay, you know how you're going to function in your organizational group. So what's beyond that? How do you become a more effective leader in your organization, and where do those personality traits come from? And so that's what this book really sets out to explore.
Thank
So
you.
that's the only question I saw. There were quite a few comments, so they're appreciative of the content and the conversation. But I'd like to ask a question about the color code, because I remember when I did my, maybe about 10 years ago, I did a color code assessment personality. And this is when I had moved to the West Coast, and, to be a little bit more free and relaxed. So I showed up as an orange, right? But I'm in leadership. And the more I worked leadership, these 12, 14-hour days, and I did the assessment again months later, I was red. I didn't like it. Didn't like being red. Because I realized you do change depending on what you're doing most of the time. How do we shift? How do you shift colors? Because, or do you show up one way in one environment, one color, and you're different in another environment?
I think that's an excellent question and actually an excellent viewpoint, because we definitely show up different depending upon the environment that we work in. I've only been in this position that I'm presently in a year on December 1st. I've always been in education. I've always been a professor. But my previous role, I was very different in working in banking and finance. And I found that I had to be, or even working in the legal field as a lawyer, I was very, very different. So I think you switch based upon your environment, but there are reasons behind that. There are the reasons that we need to uncover, and we have to look at our belief systems, on why we may be orange, or we may be red, or we may be white. I can tell you that I have suffered from a white leadership style, always wanting to be harmonious, always wanting to keep the peace. You see the scales behind me, right? The legal, scales, which is probably not the reason why I entered it into the legal field, because in the legal field, I was very red. And so I think you shift and change, but it comes from what we believe about ourselves and how we can take those beliefs that we have about ourselves, whether they are limiting us or not, and how do we change that on its head to become more effective. But that's an excellent point, Dana.
Yeah, thanks.
Uh,
Well,
We've got one more question.
I know, but I want to see if Michael has any observation related to this idea of color and leadership style.
I've got plenty, but I'd rather give the floor to Necole, because it's, she's written the book on it, so she probably knows a lot more than I do. So I'd rather,
Oh, that's not so, Michael. I want to know how
Okay, I can
does
say it.
love,
Yeah.
how does love impact leadership? Because that's what I was excited to hear from you from, right? How does our leadership style make room for love and how we treat other human beings?
That's a brilliant question. So in answer to your question, there's a lady called Tamina Watson. She's English, but she lives in Chicago, I think. And she's an immigration lawyer. And she's heavily resonated with my loving leadership style, because she says she tells everybody when they're going through immigration and family law, sprinkle with it a bit of love, put a bit of love into everything you do. It came from when I used to teach children, and then now when I teach adults, there's the pastoral, which is the character development. And then there's the professional, which is what we're here to do. So for example, in school, you're very kind, you're very good at sharing, you're a team player. That's your pastoral side. Then you're professional. Can you do your maths? Can you write your sentences? What I found is if you really want to have top level performance, you must get that first bit in place. If a child thinks you don't care about them, they're not learning anything. Doesn't matter how good you are as a teacher. And it's the same thing in leadership. You don't have to be somebody's best friend. You don't have to be fake. But if they know that you care about them and that you take their concerns seriously, and it comes from a place of love, like you could love your environment, or like you could love your sister, or you could love a dog, or, something on a very deep level, there's a level of respect there that everybody can resonate with. And then that informs productivity, and that informs professionalism. And it's a silly quote, but I'm always reminded of a guy called T. Harv Eker. He's a multimillionaire. And he says, when you're offered a choice, think, how can I have both? Like you just said, how can we lead and be loving, but we can have both. And that's the first belief in the book, which is embrace paradox. Embrace the fact that love will transform your life and light it up. And God forbid, if your loved ones die, it's going to be the best day of your life, the worst day of your life. So you have to be able to have a leadership concept that's deep enough to handle the complexity of life and leadership. And if you don't, then you'll have it what you think is your way. Like just said, the color. That I love what you said when you said, what's behind the color? And I've learned all that. Psychometrics are great starting point, aren't they? They're the starting point. They're not the end point. So I love the way you said that. What's behind that? Can we change that? Is somebody just having a bad time? How can we facilitate that? That's what Doug summed it up really well when he said leaders should be removing the obstacles to allow people to flourish, rather than treating somebody like an obstacle. So I hope that answers.
Absolutely. I love it. Yeah.
A terrific point. We should all think about that. And Dana, you said there was one more question, and I think we have enough time for one more question. And then, of course, I have another question for the author.
Sure. Well, I'm also reading the room. Those who have your cameras on, it's nice because I could see the expressions on your face. And Dr. Pauline is nodding her head because she did a talk on the archetypes, which is personality and so forth. So this is just pulling it all together on another level. The next question is from Maya. How do you find, and it's to anyone, I imagine, how do you find the balance between subjective and objective writing? Like, when do you know when to add more sentiment and when to be more logical?
Why don't we start with Michael and then toss the ball to Necole?
So I know Maya. She's a friend of mine. Thanks, Maya, because that's a brilliant question, because it's a really difficult question. And as soon as you put it in the chat box, I was going, Right. This is my answer. To me, there's almost like a scale of writing. If you think on the one hand, you've got like medical journals. I'm not a doctor, right? But you've got to put all your references. You've got to go very, very, or law. Yeah, it's got to be very dry. It's not about subject. Da, 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 da. On the other end of the scale, you've got total subjectivity, like Virginia Woolf to the Lighthouse, Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, James Joyce's Ulysses. When you read these things and you're like, what's even going on this, you know? And I remember being so disappointed when I read some of these books that I thought were amazing, and I just got confused. What I'd say is, if you write it, or if you were reading it, get confused, maybe you've got it out of balance, you know? And what I would say on that is try and just be authentic with it, you know, because there's room for highly logical stuff, highly subjective stuff. You know, I'm reminded of Ed Sheeran, the English songwriter. He said, how do you make all these songs that sell millions and millions and millions of dollars? He goes, that's easy. I just write for myself. I don't write for other people, because if I do, that's fake. I'm trying to get like the next thing. And that's why he's so good. You know, so it's not like you're writing for yourself as a person. You're writing something where you think, I'm proud of that. That's me. Or that's the voice, like I said before, about the speaker, you know, not the author. That's the speaker coming through. And there's no hard and fast rule with that. I know writers that write amazing things. And then you read the next book and you go, what were you thinking with that one? You know, so any answer I give you is only to inform your own writing style rather than me tell you what to do, because who am I to tell you, you know, how to write? Knowing Maya, whatever you've written, give it to me. I'd love to read it, because I know Maya, and she's fantastic, very conscientious person. So I'd love to see what she writes. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. Necole?
I would also like to see that, Maya, you know, because like Michael pointed out, like in the law, it is what it is. Like the law is the law. It does change with the times, and the law does struggle to catch up there. So that can be very, you know, here. I tend to be a very A to B person. I'm working on that, but I'm very authentic in what I display and what I say. What you see here is what the people who really know me get. I may say something off color, maybe off the cuff, but it's going to come from a very authentic and genuine place. And so that's how I write. I write based upon personal experiences of people that I've encountered and talked with. There will be references in the book to other sources that I've consulted and the research that I've done, but I am a legal researcher and writer, but I don't write from that point of view. So I always say, just write from the heart.
Wow. Thank you both, you know, for this wonderful sharing. I want to take us back to something really very practical that I think people who are starting their journey want to know. And that is, what did you choose for a publisher? Did you go with Amazon? Did you work with a traditional big book, you know, big company publisher? Did you find another way to have your books published? So Necole, do you want to pick that up, and then we'll toss it to Michael?
I know my first couple of books, I found a publisher, an independent publisher. So I worked with him for 3 years. I use a writing program that Dana's very familiar with. I use a writing program called Booksy, which formats everything. So put it in that, it formats everything. But this book will be, and you guys are the first to hear, this book will be the first book that is coming from my publishing arm called the Butterfly Press. And so this would be the first book that I'm self-publishing. And so I chose to go that route because I've worked with other publishers. And I just felt, as the lawyer in me, I can always do it better. So that's my purview. And I've always been independent. And so that's how I choose to be. But it will be available on Amazon because I will use that platform for distribution.
And does that mean that all the authors who are listening can come work with you at Butterfly?
Well, they can work with me and also Dana and I'm also, and Michael and also, but I'm sure, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, a new resource. Michael, what's been your pattern with the books you've written?
Yeah, so when I wrote my first book, I had no idea what to do. So my mum, bless her, sent it out to publishers, and I'm expecting loads of rejections, like 20 rejections, 30 rejections. And this independent publisher is called Austin Macaulay. So they're global. They got like 3 different offices, but the main is in London. They said, can we have the full manuscript? And it was the first one I submitted. I was like, what? You're supposed to reject this, so they liked it, and I went with them, and they helped me to understand. I'll be dead honest, I didn't know anything. They said, no offense, we want to publish your work, but you're not David Beckham, or you're not, it's not guaranteed seller, so we cannot put you on HarperCollins or Penguin and stuff like that. I understand that, but they said, but what we can do is we can partner on this, and we'll format it, we'll do all that, we'll put it on Amazon, and we'll do it as a partnership. So I did that with them, and it was good. And then in the second book, I did the same. I reached out to the same people, and interestingly, on the second one, the editorial board told me how much they loved it. I thought, great, you didn't say that about the first one. But also from this point, they offer things like, doing it as an audiobook and things like that. So they were all options, and I had to like choose an author and choose a voice and all that. And I like that. But also I'm playing the long game with this because like, Dr. Necole, eventually I might have my own publishing company, but for now I don't feel comfortable. I don't need that. I just want to get it out. And then eventually, like, it's like when artists, they create their own record labels. They know how to do production. So they go, we can just do it ourselves now. For me, I'm very much like, I want to write it and get it out. I am part of the editing process and all that, but the formatting, the printing, I don't add any value there. So why would I get involved? That's the way I see it for now. But, if we're watching this in 5-10 years, it should evolve and should change. If I'm still doing the same thing in 10 years, don't invite me back on this program.
I
This
suspect
should be getting better,
I suspect we're going to have both of you back multiple times because things will evolve. But before I turn it back to Dana, I want to ask both of you one last question. And is there some word or words of advice, some nugget that you want to share with people who are on this call or listening to the recording and thinking, I really want to write a book? Is there one piece of advice you'd give them that you think would help them make that leap? And Necole, you're nodding your head, so I'm going to ask you to start with your answer to what's one piece of advice you'd give a budding author? And then Michael, will turn it to you, and then we'll turn it to Dana.
The nodding was because I was thinking, but
Sorry.
This is
take it and we'll come back to you.
no. I'll go. This is what I would say. Listen to the sound of your own heart. Listen to the sound of your own spirit when it comes to writing. Only you know the story that you have to tell. There's a story in all of us, and don't believe for 1 second that no one wants to read what you write. There's an audience for everything. Audience for everything. So there's a quote by my mentor, David Gibson, that says that we need to break the habit of being who you are each and every day. And so if we have a self-limiting belief about ourselves, we need to break that habit. So one of those habits is don't believe for 1 second that there's not an audience for your story, because there is.
Okay, thank you, Necole. And Michael, do you want to close us out this part?
Yeah, my favorite motivational speaker is Les Brown. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, the wealthiest place in the world is the cemetery. And it's full of people, and they go to their graves with their best work in them. They could have written plays, they could have written novels, they could have written songs, and they don't do it, right? And I only today was talking to my mum about a phrase which is stuck in my head called unsolicited advice. And around creative projects such as writing, a lot of people will give you advice. You don't have to listen to them. It's called unsolicited advice. You didn't ask for it. They don't necessarily have any right to dictate what you do, and yet we listen to them. So I'd pick up on what Necole said. You don't listen to that. You listen to your own heart. Yeah. And when you doubt yourself, don't listen to that either, because having written books, there is nothing more fun than somebody, like I've got a picture here of Ruby Golo and Ghana reading one of my books on my wall. sending you a picture going, you're in my living room. I said, my children are reading this because I like the front cover. That is the best feeling in the world, that you've created something that's not you. It's a piece of your art, it's a piece of your soul, right? And it's doing the rounds, and you never know the people that you can influence positively, but you will when they'll tell you when you've written it.
I can't imagine a better way to end this session than hearing the words from the two of you, Michael and Necole. On behalf of everybody on this call and everybody who's going to listen to the recording, thank you from the bottoms of our heart for so much sharing today. Very inspiring, very fun. Looking forward to your next books. And thank you. And Dana, I'm going to turn it back to you to close us out and tell us what's coming next month.
Excellent. Well, first of all, we would like to thank you, our incredible moderator, Lanie. As you experienced today, as I did, it's a natural conversation that you just don't want to end. And I would love to have us all over for a cup of tea and have this very same discussion. So thank you, Lanie, and our incredible panel of authors, Dr. Necole Floyd Turner, Michael Quigley of Kataholos, and I would like to use this phrase. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Falate Rahabe. How do you say it?
Don't worry,
Yeah.
most people don't speak Gaelic. It's Faucheroha. I still spell it wrong. Don't worry.
So you're welcome, everyone. That's what he says it translate. I'd like to give Gloria, our founder for the Global Chamber Author Series, the last comments, and then I'll tell you about what's coming up next month.
Yes, thank you. Just very briefly, I want to revisit Michael's graveyard for a minute and just share with you on 3 different occasions, once at near drowning, once a victim of a stabbing, another time cancer. I almost did not see tomorrow. I came that close all 3 times to death, and I would have been a stone in that graveyard. So my inspiration for writing even my first book is called Legacy, and Dana knows that because she invited me to the Transformational Writers Conference in Puerto Rico last year to talk on that very thing, writing as part of your legacy. And now I've created my legacy, so I don't plan on having any more of those close calls. But I do know if it's God's will, my work stays alive.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Gloria. I did a post today. We do one on Wednesday. It's called on Tea Talk, Transforming Your Thoughts and Your Outcome. And it's about rejection in writing. I would like to add this comments in terms of it. If we write with the fear of being rejected, then you're not going to show up, as Necole said, authentically. Right. But if we write from a space of love that Michael has written and shared his latest release, that's an authentic place and sincere, and people will resonate with you. And even in the face of rejection, if you're doing it, you're submitting your work to a traditional editor or even an independent one, don't let that be the door that closes to keep you from moving forward. And as Gloria said, don't let that be the stone in the ground. You've got a story to tell. You've got a book to tell. And if we look at Dr. Seuss 27 times before his book ever went forward, if we look at J.K. Rowling's multiple times before her book got accepted, and you know her story. But then there are some that are first-time wonders. Out the gate, boom, Zora Neale Hurston. In the group. I think Margaret Mitchell, she's one of my favorites. Hopefully we're going to feature some authors from the South, like true deep South next year, and you get a little bit of that history of Atlanta. But thank you. So next month, third Wednesday, 11 a.m., we're going to have our final Global Chamber Author Series, and it's going to be on marketing. Because what good is there having a book, a story, or a podcast if nobody knows about it? So show up, come with questions and ideas. And then if you haven't learned much about Global Chamber, if you learned something today and you want to learn more and be a part, follow us on globalchamber.org. You can become a member. And in the last 2 minutes, I'd like to ask Pauline to say something because, like I said, she talks about archetype and I just see her nipping at the bit. So go ahead.
I just want to say that you may or may not know, but Richard Branson's just opened a University of Dyslexia. And I'm really excited about that because when I was at school, I hated spelling. I just couldn't spell. I was very dyslexic, but I didn't have a name for it. I didn't read books. So I never thought I could write a book. But I totally agree with what Michael says, is you write from your heart. And I wrote my story, I wrote my book, and I am excited to write more. I've written some others that haven't been published yet, but you need to just write it, not worry about what other people are going to say. And the other tiny thing is that somebody said to me, because my book is about my life, they said, your family may not like it because they don't like you revealing about themselves. So I did learn that my family were less enthusiastic than my friends and my readers. So I think be okay about any rejection. Just be true to yourself and be authentic. That's it. Thank you, Dana.
Our absolute pleasure. And Josie, I did see your comment about learning French and simple short books these days. So I imagine if that's what you want to do is to learn another language, add that to your list before the year ends or in the beginning, reach out to Jose Georges. I hope you're on LinkedIn. And in these final minutes, put your LinkedIn connection so people can follow you if they're not already doing it. I think I'm 80% of the people I'm following. And thank you, Terry. You know, we're going to give you the last minute. Terry Levine.
Yeah, but learning foreign language, that's exactly what I'm doing via movies and Sundance on one side. And I have, yes, a collection of small books to learn basic sentence. As you know, I work in the tourism industry of Utah. We receive a lot of tourists in Park City speaking Italian, Portuguese, English, Russian, from Ukraine, all those languages. And so, yes, learn language by watching movies. And there is a collection of small books published in the United States, which is basic conversation books, when you can learn the basic words you need to understand a foreign language. Right. So this is what
Awesome.
I'm studying 6 languages currently. Right.
Awesome. I see those faces. You like translate. This is what I heard. Thank you, Terry, for sharing that you have a small group and that you are open to supporting people and development and strategic goals. So Terry Lawine is in Utah. He's one of our leaders for Global Chamber out there. And he's also welcoming, as we are here in Atlanta, when you travel to our city, we welcome and receive you. So I'm going to give you guys back the last few seconds of the Global Chamber Globinar today. And the last words is right on. WRIT on. Right on. One page, one sentence, something every day. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Necole and Michael.
Thanks, Lanie.
Michael, it's been a pleasure.